Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on the term death pile, why I choose to use the term security pile, and just overall share with you why I think that it can be a bad thing, like it is often used, the term death pile, but it can also be a good thing, which is where I use more the term security pile. And maybe that would be helpful to you if you're kind of dealing with maybe you're new or you're seasoned and you're constantly seeing death pile used in a negative way, and just kind of share my thoughts around it if that is helpful. So if you like this video, before you go, definitely hit the thumbs up. And if you want to see more of them on different topics, definitely leave those below. I can definitely try and do more of these. But a death pile, in a sense, is just unlisted inventory. Maybe it's stuff that you keep passing over and you're listing newer stuff and you're just never getting to that. Maybe it is, a lot of people say it's the money pile because it's stuff that could potentially sell and bring in money that's just sitting there and it can't sell unless it's listed. Maybe it's creating disorganization and chaos in your workspace or in your home. And, maybe your family or friends, like for me, if I've got a whole bunch of stuff, I don't want my friends stopping by because it's embarrassing. Even though it's my job, I still like to have kind of an organized space. So it can often be referred to in a negative way because I think a lot of people as resellers like the sourcing component. They like to go the thrill of the hunt. There's nothing better than going to the thrift store. You're going through racks, and oh my gosh, there's this label you've always wanted to find. And during that thrill of the hunt, you're also picking up stuff that maybe you're less excited about, but it's a good deal, or it's a good size, or it's a brand that other people like, but maybe you don't really like. Whatever the reason is, I think most resellers often find themselves in chaos. And I know that one of my goals this year is to find more balance. I know I've talked about this in some of my recent videos, and balance to me is not the chaotic disorganization, go, go, go. It is having some thoughtful planning so that I know that I'm in control and my inventory is not in control. However, I do have a unique situation and I do have a need for something called a security pile, and I'll talk about that at the end. But first, if you are someone dealing with a death pile, there are a lot of things that I think people tend to do to overcome this death pile mentality. One thing that many people try to do, especially seasoned resellers that I've talked to, they only source when they need stuff. So if you're sitting there and you have 50 items and you're like, oh, but this thrift store, they're having a great sale, I can't pass it up, or oh, I'm on my way home, I'm just gonna stop in really quickly. I think it's that reflection or that realization of, yes, could you potentially get something that's amazing at the thrift store if you go? Absolutely. There's so much good product out there, and so it's always tempting. I'm sure you may have had that time where you stopped into a thrift store and you found that really great gem and it sold within a day for $100, and you're like, that's the goal. That's why I stop into thrift stores. Well, you might have the ability to just pick up great things, but I know for me, I typically, every time I go to a thrift store, unfortunately pick up some things that I'm less excited about. Maybe it's a good deal. Maybe I didn't, fully look up comps. And so then I get home with more stuff that I'm really that excited about. So I think it's often a bad thing because many people use the term money pile. It's inventory that if you get it listed, it has the chance to sell and bring in some money. If you paid for it, it's money that you spent that's just sitting on the ground or sitting in a bin or sitting in a closet that you can't get your money back until it's listed. And different people in different locations have different options. So I know for me, one of the things I'm doing differently these days is when I shop at the Dollar Day, I'm trying to get that stuff listed immediately because I have 7 days to exchange anything that I find damaged or, more wear. That is going to be helpful for me to get that stuff done right away so that I can return it at the next Dollar Day and get exchanged for some new stuff. But it's also stuff that when I shop at the bins, there is no exchanging, there's just redonating. There's possibly things that need to be stain treated or hemmed or something along those lines. And I'm just less than excited to do that kind of stuff. And so for me personally, it's when I'm sourcing too much. So for me, I know I don't need to buy more than 70 to 100 items per week because I'm not going to list or cross list more than that. I list about 10 to 15 items per day on average. And, so if I go to the Goodwill bins and I get 100 pounds, I don't think I've ever gotten that much, but let's say I did, that would potentially be a couple hundred items. And unless I don't want to go sourcing for 2 weeks, that's way more than I can handle. I probably do want to go sourcing the next week. And that's where that kind of cycle happens. So for me, it's really scaling back what I'm sourcing. It's so sourcing smarter so that I'm picking up less stuff so that when I do want to go out and take a trip down to LA to go sourcing, I still can and I don't have too much stuff here. But also creating a plan. So if you are dealing with this, I think that the Marie Kondo method could be really quite important to do pretty often, once a month. Dump all the stuff that's unlisted in a pile and sort it out. Sort it into, why haven't I listed this? This is totally fine. There's no work involved. It needs a steam and it needs photos, and then I just need to get it listed. Versus a pile of needs some work, might be valuable enough to actually just do the work. And so I'm still going to try and get this listed. And then my third pile of just redonate it. Like, you know yourself, I know myself. I don't want to do too much work to my stuff. So I would rather redonate it. So creating a plan around this could be, and many people find helpful, to just basically say, I'm not going to go sourcing until I have my death pile listed. Now, I won't go to that extreme, and I'll explain in a second, but many people, if you're 5 minutes from the closest thrift store and you like to pop in, a couple times a week, that might be a really great strategy for you, because when you need inventory, you easily have access to it, or you easily have access to places you can potentially get it. I personally tend to, when I sort my piles, immediately go and put the stuff that I'm redonating in my car. That way it's in there. The next time I'm at a place where I can donate, I can just drop it off and it's out of my house, it's out of my space. So that's really helpful for me to do. And as far as fixing or treating stuff, put on that movie, say I'm, not going to do anything until I deal with this pile of stuff. I've got one right here, and I think it's stuff worth putting a little effort into, so just get it done. Don't buy any more shoes until you get your shoes cleaned and ready to go, that type of stuff. So that's kind of what I do when I feel overwhelmed, feel like I've got too much stuff. I just came off of the December series where I did holiday box swaps, and I was swimming in stuff, and I felt so disorganized and so unhappy with my space. I had boxes going out, boxes coming in. I had inventory I was buying on top of what I was getting in these boxes. And it led to me not being as productive as I should be. And so I definitely don't want to be in that situation again. I think a lot of people see me on these videos and they think, oh, she's so organized. I've got my stuff. It's all in order. And I think, yeah, I am a relatively organized person, but I can't tell you how many times I walk into my house and it's like, where are all these piles? There's a pile of, I just bought, of 2 bins. There's 2 bins of stuff that needs to be, packaged up. There's 2 piles of stuff that, needs work. There's just piles everywhere. And it even if they're somewhat organized, it's still overwhelming for me. So one of the key things that I think hopefully this video can provide some helpfulness is, if you are like me and you can't easily go sourcing, maybe it's time, maybe it's distance, whatever your situation may be, I actually want to put out the positive aspect of having what I call a security pile. For me, if I go to $1 a day, which is one of the days that I go sourcing pretty consistently in a variety of different Los Angeles stores, that's Thursdays. And when I go, I can sometimes walk away with 10 items. All day sourcing, I've only found 10 items I like. And that's not enough for a week. I list about 10 to 15 items per day typically, and that's not going to cut it. And I also am not close enough to just run to, other stores anytime I want. So for me, it's really crucial to have, and I typically have about 50 to 100 items of unlisted inventory at all times at my house. And if I don't, and I have a really bad sourcing day, then I'm really stressed because I like to have consistent listing. Now, if you don't consistently list, and you aren't full-time, and this isn't, this is just kind of side income, then you probably wouldn't need a security pile. But for me, it is a full-time job. And so I do need stuff to list at all times. So what is the difference between security pile and death pile? A security pile is there to provide some security so that I'm not out picking up stuff that I'm unhappy with or feel the pressure to pick up stuff that I'm unhappy with. It's really led for, I have a lot of stuff that is, middle of the road. I'm not that excited about, might only sell for $15 to $20. I want to be sourcing smarter. So I want to have a little bit of cushion to only pick up 10 things if that's the only thing that I think is worth it for me that day. Security pile can turn into a death pile. And this is something that I know I constantly have to evaluate in my own space is, why is there this bin in my security pile that's been there for a month and a half? That's no longer a security pile because I'm listing newer stuff before I get to that stuff. Now, I will say I am realizing I should list my dollar a day stuff first, keep the tags on, get it under light, inspect it fully, and if it's got some sort of flaw, I can easily return it to the next dollar a day and not return, exchange, and be able to get some new items for that, which I think is really crucial for me to save some money and not waste as much. If you saw my bad buys recently, it's like if I had been a little bit more on top of it, I would have had a lot of that stuff I could have returned instead of lost the money. And I do pay full price for things. So if I'm losing $10 on something because I don't inspect it fully, then that's a bummer. If your Goodwills don't allow exchanges, maybe there is a thrift store in your area that does, and maybe those are the places you want to focus on. For me, that's one of the reasons why the bins has become a lower place that I'm not sourcing as much at, because I'm finding myself with a lot of damaged items that are not really repairable and end up getting redonated. So if I'm getting 50 things at the bins and 8 of them are things that I can't end up listing, well, you're taking those 8 out, you're dividing your cost between the 42 other items, and it brings the price up. So for me, it's something that I'm definitely keeping in mind is if I can exchange it, then I might have the ability, as long as I'm on top of listing, I might have the ability to get some of my money back. And I think the big thing for me is finding a strategy and finding some balance that works for you. So if someone says, I can't have a death pile, it's terrible, I've got this unlisted inventory, that might be something that creates a lot of stress and anxiety for them. But maybe you're like me and you feel really uncomfortable not having things to list. And so maybe having a security pile is worthwhile for you. And the whole death pile conversation is kind of irrelevant in your business and your strategies. So anyways, that's my thought on death pile versus security pile. I personally will always have to have a security pile as long as I'm this far away from decent sourcing. It is something that I have to have, but I also have to keep an eye on to make sure it doesn't get out of control. And that's what I'm constantly trying to fine tune. And if you yourself really find yourself constantly struggling with that death pile, I think maybe taking some bolder moves. There are a lot of resellers that have just figured out, I really love the sourcing. If I want to source, I've got to get through this stuff. And so that motivation gets them or helps them to list and be more productive. And so that might be something to try. So, and I think I'd probably go that route if I was a little bit closer. But for now, I feel like I figured out something that works. I have a place for unlisted inventory. It's all in one space. It's in my listing area, so I can just grab from that. And it seems to be working out for me, but I'll constantly try and fine tune, and I'll update you if I find anything else that works. But definitely hit the thumbs up if you like this topic or sharing. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.